I'm Liddy Renner. I am a sophomore and I play squash and lacrosse.
Maddie Kinker, senior, lacrosse.
I'm Luke Carbonello. I'm a senior. I'm 21 and I run cross country and track.
I'm Sarah Bartholomew. I'm 19. I'm a sophomore and I'm on the swim team.
Christoph Niederhauser, alpine skiing, and I'm a senior.
Tim Kroll, 21, senior, playing some men's squash.
Jessica Young, 19, sophomore, ice hockey.
Gordon, 22 years old, men's soccer.
I'm Mark Lewis, the men's and women's squash coach at Middlebury College.
My go-to meal before a competition is usually eggs, maybe with cheese on them, or like a banana with peanut butter on a piece of whole grain toast.
If it's a competition that's like midday, I usually go for a hearty breakfast of fried eggs on a bed of spinach with some sort of carb, whether that be a muffin, a piece of toast, an English muffin. Sometimes I'll make a breakfast sandwich.
I usually eat a lot, like 2 or 3 hours before competition, so a lot of protein, usually a lot of eggs. I try and avoid peanut butter, but that's just me, and I usually eat a lot of bananas.
It's like breakfast, like eggs, but maybe like a sandwich if it's in the afternoon.
Definitely some kind of carb and a lot of protein. I really just want to try to fill up the night before a race.
A peanut butter and jelly sandwich with a banana.
Gatorade for electrolytes, grilled chicken, salad, and pasta, carbs.
I usually keep it simple, like grilled cheese, or like rice and vegetables. I never really like do what's on them like in the hot food because it's just too like fancy before a meal. I like to just keep it simple so I don't get a stomachache.
I like eating eggs in the morning before a game.
Other than to talk about recovery meals and pre-match meals, not that extensive. Most of my experience came when I was an athlete, but I read a lot about it and paid close attention to it when I was competing myself.
I usually try and grab an apple with peanut butter or a piece of cheese and an apple or something before practice, although oftentimes if I get out of class too late and can't go to the dining hall before practice, I just grab a bar from a bin we have at the squash courts.
Usually some sort of granola bar or an apple and peanut butter.
I usually try and get some coffee, and I usually eat a bunch of fruit and a bunch of protein.
I like a banana or a bar.
Definitely an apple or banana, and if I have enough time, a PBJ.
An apple with peanut butter.
Probably again a Gatorade for electrolytes, and then a Cliff Bar.
I'd say an apple or a banana and peanut butter probably, just giving a lot of energy. I have celiac, so I can't ever really have just like a PB&J, so it makes it a little more difficult for me.
Banana.
A fibrous fruit, an apple, maybe a banana. Bananas you can tend to crash from because they have such a high glycemic index. And maybe a little bit of protein to help in the recovery after, to get it into your system, before the workout, so it stays with you, and also extend your energy a little bit. So some good fruit, maybe a protein bar or a granola bar as well.
I feel like I could get most of my food, like my pre-practice and pre-match food, from the dining halls, but because oftentimes I get out of practice and don't have time to go to the dining hall and have to rush down to the gym, I end up having a bar, and that's just poor foresight on my part and not grabbing an apple at lunch. But I think the only way the dining halls fail us is by not being open like when we need them to be right before practice.
I usually get it from the dining halls.
I get 9 times out of 10 I get it from the dining hall.
Like a mix of both, I guess, but mostly the dining hall.
No, I definitely get enough from the dining hall.
From the dining halls.
For the most part, I can get it from the dining hall. They have a good selection there, but also probably Mid-Express.
For me, it's a little different just because I do have celiac, so I do have a lot of my own snacks because sometimes the dining hall doesn't really fit my diet completely, but I know for a lot of people that don't, they get most of their food at the dining hall. So.
I think the dining halls support athletes in our need for nutritional diets. there are always a lot of options. They might not be like readily available. We might have to create them, but there are definitely options to eat a healthy diet.
I think that the dining hall has a really good thing going with the unlimited food plan. I think that is really helpful for athletes, especially when you're eating 3,000 or 4,000 calories a day. But yeah, sometimes there could be maybe a little bit more protein, I think.
Kind of. I can't eat gluten, which makes it really hard to eat in the dining halls sometimes. So sometimes I have like really weird meals because I can't really get what I need.
Yeah, I think they do a good job. I mean, there's always like fruit we can eat or some kind of protein and carb. So
Yes, I do.
I think absolutely.
Yeah, I would say they have a lot of different options like fruit, vegetables, protein, stuff like that. So I think they do.
Diets.
They gear it towards athletes, but they gear it toward healthy eating. I think there are lots of options and lots of healthy options. And that's what really matters, I think, to me as a coach, that there are healthy options, that you don't have to use supplements to get nutrients you need. So I think they're doing a good job.
I think most of my sports nutrition knowledge has come from like squash camps and a middle school health class. In both cases, a lot of the time presenters would come, or we would look at PowerPoints about sports nutrition. And also my dad is an athlete, and so he's definitely always told me, like, after we work out together, now drink chocolate milk, or now drink this, eat this.
Growing up being an athlete, there's coaches always kind of mention things, and then I think at Middlebury there's been a focus to try and help female athletes with nutrition, so there's been various speakers.
My coach definitely for sure tries to sit us down at least once a semester and give us a talk about nutrition.
Probably like my parents. My dad was an athlete, so like being at home with him, he like raised me to learn and understand how to eat for sport.
I guess as I was younger, we actually had kind of meal plans that we were given to kind of like say like this is what you should eat. And that's kind of just stuck with me the whole time. And we are constantly reminded, like, okay, yeah, try to eat better and try to eat this kind of food before a race.
I took a nutrition class in high school. Also, my club team had a nutritionist, so that helped a lot.
My health classes throughout high school, middle school, a wide range of squash camps I've went to. Talk about squash-specific nutrition, I think is great.
I don't feel like I've gotten really any sports nutrition information from the college, except through my coaches maybe saying, like, make sure you have a good breakfast or try and have this before you eat. And there might have been optional talks and stuff that I haven't gone to, but no information has been made, like, very readily.
I think there can be more.
I'd say so.
Not really. We had a guy come in last year for the swim team to talk about nutrition, but it wasn't really that helpful.
I have, yeah, we definitely talk about it, like our coaches talk about it, and then we actually have a couple members on our team who are really into nutrition. They kind of spread that throughout the team too.
No, but I've only been here for a semester, but I haven't gotten any.
I think a decent amount, yes, especially from the training room here.
Yeah. I don't know if it's from the college, but we have a Middlebury alumni who works as like a sports nutritionist, and the last 2 years he's come and like talked to us before the season starts. I don't know if that was through like the connection with the team or the school.
Not yet. It's not to say they're not out there, though.
My findings. This was really interesting for me to do, mostly because I found that a lot of athletes had similar responses as I would give. Most people talked about having like a banana or an apple with peanut butter or something like that before practice, which is definitely what my answer is, and also having a bar or something like that before practice. It was interesting to compare responses and my previous knowledge to what I learned through doing this project. So I found that one glaring oversight, and this could have been in the way I did my research and that I didn't ask a specific question about it, was with all of the interviewees, we talked a lot about what to eat before and during working out, but didn't talk about what to eat afterwards or what to eat like really front loading, like a few days before a competition. And in any study I read, it was that was made explicitly clear that those were almost the most important aspects of your diet for competition. And so like carbo loading days in advance is really important with breads, pasta, potatoes, things like that. And then one thing that I hadn't really thought about was how important glycogen levels are. And so carbs are important long-term before a competition because they store up glycogen levels and increase them so that you'll have that long-lasting energy throughout a competition. And similarly, glycogen levels are really important in like the 15 minutes after you work out because you need to restore those levels. And most studies I read talked about how milk, especially chocolate milk because of the sugar, is one of the easiest ways to restore those glycogen levels. And no participants mentioned milk, which I thought was interesting. Maybe my dad is just really big on chocolate milk, but that's always been something I've been really aware of, is that like I should, if I can, drink a glass of chocolate milk after working out because it is really helpful to restore the protein and nutrients that I need. One thing I found interesting that I think only Harrison talked about and I didn't was the idea of Gatorade. I am not a big Gatorade drinker. If it's given to me, I know at like some of our really hot lacrosse games last year, parents would bring Gatorade, then I absolutely will. And I've definitely felt at times that, whoa, I need a Gatorade. I'm so tired or something like that. Or I just like feel really weak. I need a Gatorade and I'm really dehydrated and a Gatorade is what I want. But I would have thought that that would have been a more widely expressed feeling that Gatorade was a good thing to have during workouts. Especially because in every study I read, I found that electrolytes were hugely important, and that's something that I think is a glaring omission in as athletes are understanding about what to put in our bodies. One thing I found interesting was that if you have a competition from like morning to midday, you should have a really light breakfast, such as like a bowl of Cheerios and a banana with skim milk or something like that. Whereas everyone, myself included, that I interviewed said like eggs, protein, banana, peanut butter, toast, really like a rigid, really healthy, but like big breakfast was really important, which the study I was reading cited that's important for later in the day competitions, but that a really small breakfast should be eaten if it's within a couple hours of competition. And so I think on a less studious level, what I take away from this is just that there is a glaring omission in sports nutrition education at Mid, and Kelly Cray mentions that, how if you request a nutritionist, you can they can come to campus or you can meet them in town. But I also got the feeling from Kelly that that was more if it seemed as though someone had a real dietary issue, so an eating disorder or something like that, not necessarily an athlete wanting to improve their performance through eating better. And I thought that that was really interesting, especially because there are some universities where sports nutrition can be a major, and so therefore there are tons of classes catered towards that. And I think that, cough cough, Professor Anderson, this is something that could be implemented with the new food studies program, and is definitely something that a lot of athletes would benefit from, whether it was a real class or seminars or something like that. I think it's something that needs to be implemented on our campus. And I also think that like we as athletes have to recognize that I'm sure there are talks and speakers and things like that that we could go to that we're not. So I think there probably are more resources than we are aware of, but my overall impression from doing this project is that we as athletes aren't doing everything we can to fuel our bodies, and it's simply because we don't know enough to do more and to treat our bodies better.